This happened a few weeks ago. I was working the night shift at a warehouse that packaged toys for underprivileged kids. I needed the money after my dad passed away unexpectedly, so I took the job even though I guessed it would be eerily quiet. The warehouse was surrounded by a chain-link fence. The parking lot hardly had any light. Inside, it felt heavy with fluorescent lights and smelled like cardboard. It was familiar but uninviting that I remember starting my shift normally. I checked the packaging and sorted toys. Everything was fine until the third night. Around midnight, I heard tapping from the far end of the warehouse. It was soft at first, like a distant echo. I didn't know what it was, but I felt pulled to check it out. As I walked toward the noise, I scanned the aisles filled with boxes of dolls. That's when I noticed a broken box. The dolls inside stared at me with their glassy eyes. Their faces looked too lifelike. The tapping continued, but it seemed to come from somewhere else. The next few nights, the tapping changed. It turned into whispers. They floated through the aisles, soft and eerie. I didn't know if I was just tired, but something felt strange. One night, while organizing toys, I saw shadows flickering across the shelves. I froze. I glanced toward the area, but nothing was there. My heart started racing. It felt like someone was watching me. I told myself it was just my imagination. What else could it be? But I was alone. Every night I went back, I felt more on edge. The whispers got clearer, almost forming words I couldn't understand. I tried to shake it off. I was surrounded by toys meant to bring joy, but I felt anything but happy. Then one night, as I worked my way through a pile of boxes, the laughter grew louder. It was cold and unsettling, echoing through the empty aisles. I shivered and glanced around, hoping for a coworker. But I was still alone. Suddenly, everything went quiet. I took a deep breath, and then a voice broke the stillness. "Why are you here?" The question sent chills down my spine. I turned toward the sound, hoping to find someone. But I was alone. Or was I? The warehouse felt darker that night. I struggled to keep breathing. I didn't know what was happening. I tried to shake it off again, but something was wrong. The laughter returned, louder now. I felt something in the air. My skin prickled. I wanted to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. It was like the toys around me were watching, waiting. The voice repeated, "Why are you here?" It had a strange echo, as though it came from everywhere. I glanced back down the aisle, but there was nothing. All I could hear was my heartbeat. I felt trapped in that heavy silence. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I was surrounded by toys, yet I felt utterly alone. After that night, I never returned to the warehouse. It still haunts me. The laughter, the whispers, the unanswered question, they linger in my mind. Why was I ever there? It took me days to shake off what happened at the warehouse. I tried to focus on things that brought me comfort, my friends, my family, and the little moments that made me happy, but the night shadows wouldn't leave me. I hadn't even realized how much I'd been avoiding the memories until I slipped back into my routine. I never planned on going back to the warehouse, but I needed the money. Bills piled up, and the pressure mounted. So, I found myself back at that same dreadful place, filled with unease. The fluorescent lights flickered as I stepped inside. I fought to stay calm. It was just a job, right? I told myself to think of the kids who needed those toys. I started sorting the boxes again. My heart raced with every creak and groan of the building. I was fine for the first few hours, but then I heard it again, the tapping. It started off faint, but soon escalated into distinct knocks. I froze, my chest tightening. The memories flooded back. I was determined not to let fear control me. I took a deep breath and walked toward the source. In the same aisle where I had seen the dolls, I noticed something odd. A box was slightly ajar, like it had been moved. My hands shook as I reached for it. As I pulled it open, I found it filled with dolls again. But this time, the dolls wore distressing expressions, screaming faces, twisted smiles. I pushed the box closed, heart racing. This wasn't good. I suddenly felt like someone was watching me. Then the laughter returned, softer this time, almost playful. It hovered around me, filling the air like an unwanted fog. The voice broke through again, whispering, "You shouldn't be here." I jerked my head around, desperate to find someone, anyone. The aisle was empty, but the atmosphere was thick with energy. All my fingers tingled. Instinctively, I backed away, but I stepped on something. I looked down to find a small, flickering toy flashlight. It buzzed to life in my hand, illuminating the lane ahead. I felt a strange pull to keep going, as if the flashlight urged me forward. "Why are you here?" The voice came again, clearer this time. My heart sank. I didn't have an answer, and the fear boiled in my chest. But this time, I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I decided to dig deeper. As I continued down the aisle, the whispers turned to names: a child's name, a date. My skin crawled at the thought of what it meant. Why were these toys tied to someone's memory? I hesitated. I wanted to turn back, but I felt like I was being led by an unseen force. I finally turned to where the voice seemed strongest, that S when I saw it. A tiny doll, unlike the others, sat at the end of the aisle. It looked unusually lifelike, its eyes glimmering with what felt like soul. Beneath it, on the floor, I noticed a faded piece of paper. I crouched down to pick it up, my pulse quickening. It read, "If you hear the laughter, it's already too late." I dropped the note in horror, heart racing. Suddenly, the laughter erupted all around me, echoing off the walls. I turned to run, but the shadows closed in on me, blocking my path. I couldn't escape. Something was here with me, and I was terrified of what would happen next. My breath quickened as I stumbled backward, panic rising. The laughter crowded around me, twisting my thoughts like a tight knot. I could barely see beyond the beam of the flashlight in my hand. The aisle felt longer, darker, and the presence looming closer. I forced the urge to scream deep down, reminding myself that I needed to stay calm, that I got brave or foolish as I turned the flashlight around, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever was hiding in the shadows. But all I saw were empty boxes and rusting shelves. The laughter faded for a moment, creating a suffocating silence that rang in my ears. I couldn't stay here. Turning, I hurried back toward the way I came. Just as I reached the entrance of the aisle, I was jolted by a loud crash behind me. I whirled around, heart pounding. A stack of boxes had toppled over. I didn't stick around to investigate. My instincts screamed at me to escape. I sprinted through the maze of aisles, the sound of my footsteps echoing through the empty warehouse. As I reached the break room, I skidded to a halt. The door creaked open, and I pressed my back against the wall, trying to catch my breath. This wasn't what I signed up for. I thought about the money, but it felt trivial now. I needed to get out, and then I heard it again, a faint giggle, like that of a child. It was coming from the back of the break room. I glanced toward the dim lights spilling in from the slightly cracked door, curiosity nagging at me. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks. Or maybe it was something much worse. I had to make a choice. Either confront whatever was lurking or escape and never look back. I surprised myself as I edged toward the noise, driven by an instinct that was both inexplicable and terrifying. I pulled the door open wide enough to slip through. Everything felt eerily still. I stepped inside, the shadows growing deeper. The faint giggle grew louder, dancing around me. It was a cruel taunt. I looked around, hoping to see anything. But the break room was empty, save for the flickering overhead light, casting soft shadows across the walls. Suddenly, I noticed the toy flashlight flicker again in my grip. The light dimmed and flared, almost directing me toward the back of the room. I turned my attention to a set of drawers tucked against the far wall. Something drew me there, a pull that felt almost magnetic. The laughter intensified, now swirling with whispers. I cracked open the top drawer. Inside lay dusty paper dolls, much like the ones I had seen before. But these were different. They wore names, handwritten on the backs, names of children. I reached deeper, heart thudding loudly. What kind of game was this? The moment I grasped a handful of paper dolls, a cold draft swept through the room, and the laughter erupted. I dropped the dolls as the temperature plunged around me. "Leave," a voice hissed, echoing off the walls, charging the air with electricity. My heart sank. It wasn't just a warning. It was a command. I turned to flee, but a soft tug caught my ankle. I looked down. The paper dolls were no longer just paper. They'd come to life, tiny grasping hands trying to hold me back. I yanked my foot free just as the lights flickered and went dead. Darkness swallowed me whole. I felt the weight of the darkness close in around me, pressing on my chest. I stood frozen, listening for any sound, any indication of what was happening. The laughter had faded, replaced by an oppressive silence that made my skin crawl. I took a tentative step back, my hands grasping the flashlight. But it flickered like a dying star, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. Panic surged again. I turned to the door, the one I had just entered through, but the small crack of light that had been spilling in was gone. My heart raced. a primal urge to escape further igniting my senses. Before I could move, something drifted past me in the dark. I felt a chill, like icy fingers brushing against my arm, and I stifled a gasp. Another sound broke the stifling silence, a soft giggle mixed with something else, a broken sob. I strained my ears, trying to make sense of it. "Hello?" I called out, my voice wavering. I had to know if I was alone. I didn't get an answer, just the sound of my own breath echoing back at me. I felt ridiculous, but the urge to call out was too strong. I stepped toward the corner where I'd seen the drawers. Maybe there was some sort of clue left where the dolls had been. Even in the absence of light, I focused on the memory of the room. The sterile old lunch table, the coffee pot long cold, and the peeling paint. My hands grazed the cool, wooden surface as I found my way back to the drawers. I yanked one open, nothing but dust, and the faint scent of something long expired. Though it felt pointless, I rummaged through, my fingers brushing against soft fabric. I pulled out an old stuffed animal, worn and threadbare, a faint whisper of happiness lingering in its stitches. "What are you doing here?" I muttered, feeling foolish for talking to inanimate objects. But that S when I saw it. A slip of paper wedged beneath the drawer's splintered edge. I grabbed it and unfolded it carefully. It was a crumpled note, childlike scrawls barely legible in the dim light. "Find us. We're waiting," it read. My stomach churned. As I read it over and over, the laughter erupted once more around me. But this time, it felt closer, sharper, more menacing. I spun around, the flashlight illuminating nothing but shadows. "Who's there?" I yelled, attempting to sound brave. But the sound only echoed, returning like a taunt. The cold seeped deeper, and I could feel a chill racing down my spine, as if something was closer now, breathing down my neck. And then the shadows shifted, forming a figure just at the edge of my vision. It was there. I knew it was. Someone was watching me. I had to get out. But as I took a step toward the door, it slammed shut with a force that rattled the walls. The light died completely, leaving me in pitch darkness. Terrified, I pounded my fists against the heavy door. "Let me out!" I screamed. My voice trembled as dread seeped into my bones. But it was no use. The laughter swelled, encircling me, relentless, suffocating. I had made a mistake coming here. But now my only choice was to confront whatever was waiting for me in the dark. The darkness pressed in as I fumbled with the flashlight. I hoped for a flicker, a sign of hope, but instead, it sat dead in my hands. I could almost hear my heart pounding in my ears, drowning out the laughter that seemed to echo from the corners of this accursed room. Then, I heard something soft scrape against the floor. My breath caught. I whipped around, trying to peer into the void, but all I saw were echoes of my own anxiety. "What was that?" I whispered to myself, forcing my feet to move. Even as the urge to run consumed me, that I inched closer to the wall, hoping to find something, anything, that might shed light on this nightmare unfolding around me. This was no ordinary storage room. It felt alive with energy, with memories I couldn't understand. I gripped the edge of the drawers, feeling their rough wood beneath my trembling fingers. That I had to stay calm. I needed to think. That S when I heard it again, a faint whisper this time, barely audible, but undeniably there. "Find us." My blood ran cold. The note suddenly made sense. "Find us," I murmured, my voice barely breaking through the silence. But how? Who was I supposed to find? The giggling returned, this time swirling around me like smoke. It was maddening, so close, yet too elusive to grasp. I scanned the room, desperate for any sign, any answer. My eyes fell upon the door, and as if responding to my thoughts, it rattled again. My pulse quickened as I turned back towards it, wishing I could will myself through. Then, a shadow rushed across the floor, darting between the rows of forgotten boxes. The laughter turned into a chorus, distorted and mocking. I felt something pulsing against my skin, an energy that was both familiar and frightful. Whatever was in here wanted me to stay. It was like being caught in a web. I swallowed hard, forcing my legs to move. I wasn't meant to stay. I'd come searching for the truth, not to be swept away by this nightmare. Yet, as I stepped toward the exit, a shape emerged in my periphery, trailing just out of sight. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. No answer, only the soft sound of footsteps approaching, rhythmic and taunting. I turned, determination flooding my mind. And that S when I saw it. A face, pale and small, peering out from behind one of the boxes, its eyes glinting in the dark. It didn't seem malicious, just lost. "Help us," it pleaded, the laughter fading into a hushed tone. "What do you mean? Who are you?" I forced the words out. I was still scared, but there was a new surge of curiosity. Before the figure could respond, a loud crash erupted from above, shaking the ceiling and further plunging me into dread. Dust rained down, and I stumbled back, nearly losing my balance. Something was very wrong here, and my heart raced at the realization that danger might be lurking closer than I thought. Now I was torn. Should I help the child? Or should I flee? I knew I couldn't stay here much longer. The air felt too thick, too charged. I took a step toward the child, but the room shuddered again. "Quick! Find us before it's too late." The voice trembled, sending chills down my spine. I had to choose. Time was running out. Would I listen to the child, or look for a way out before whatever loomed in the dark reached me? The moment hung like a dark cloud above me. My choice weighed heavily in the air. I glanced one last time at the child's pleading eyes. How could I turn away? But the room felt alive, pulsating with an unseen threat. "Okay," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'll help you. Just tell me what to do." The child, hovering just out of reach, seemed to relax slightly. Under the floor, the voice whispered urgently, "The box, you have to find it." Before I could ask more, the giggling erupted again, louder and more chaotic. I winced, focusing on the space beneath my feet, the dust-covered floorboards, the space between the rows of boxes. I could feel the weight of invisible eyes on me as I started searching, moving hastily. I knelt down, raking my fingers across the floor, feeling between the gaps of the wooden planks. Then, my fingers brushed against something. A cold, smooth edge. My heart jumped. Pulling at it, I found a small wooden box, intricately carved but long neglected. Relief washed over me. But that relief was short-lived as an oppressive heaviness filled the room. I glanced back at the child, but the shadows flickered and danced, the small figure fading in and out of my view. "Open it," the voice urged. The laughter morphed into a low growl, vibrating off the walls. I wanted to hesitate, to put the box down and run, but a compulsion drew me in. I flipped the box open, the hinges creaking like old bones. Inside lay a collection of small trinkets, a broken toy, a tarnished locket, and a faded photograph of a family I didn't recognize. Every item felt heavy with emotion. Then, a scream pierced the air, sharp and chilling. It came from above, echoing down the darkened stairwell. I froze. Was someone else here? "Don't look back. You have to hurry." The child's voice shrilled, raw with desperation. My instincts screamed at me to bolt, to escape whatever horror was unfolding around me. But I couldn't just leave. Glancing once more at the contents of the box, I got the feeling that this wasn't merely a collection of forgotten things. They were pieces of a story, fragments desperately trying to be heard. I lifted the locket. The scream rang out again, more frantic this time. Just then, the floor beneath me creaked ominously. I felt it shift, as if something alive were writhing below, eager to break free. "Please, you must find us before," the voice faltered, swallowed by another crash from above, louder this time. Adrenaline surged through me. Whatever that scream was, it meant I was out of time. I dropped the locket back into the box, desperate to salvage some connection before fleeing. And then, the visions hit me, flashes of faces watching, pleading, trapped. I staggered back, understanding dawning on me with fearful clarity. These weren't just lost children. They were echoes of something darker, something that had happened here. But before I could process it all, the ceiling shuddered again, dust raining down like confetti of chaos. Panic erupted. I needed to get out. The child's figure flickered out of sight as the laughter rose to a deafening peak. I turned, racing for the door, just as it slammed shut, sealing me in. I pounded my fists against it, a wave of terror coursing through me. I was trapped. But if the stories were true, if the whispers were real, there was something more to uncover here. And in that moment, there was no turning back. I banged my fists against the door, panic surging inside me. It was solid, immovable, like the weight of my decision. I pushed against it again, but it didn't budge. I could hear the laughter still, jagged and broken, echoing around me. My heart raced as I took a step back, scanning the dimly lit room. The air felt thick and electric, pulsing with a frenzied energy. The box at my feet began to vibrate, as if it were alive. A flicker of light illuminated the edges, and for a moment, I thought I could see shapes swirling within. But just then, another crash echoed above me, louder than before, shaking the very foundations of the warehouse that I couldn't just stand there. With a deep breath, I turned and headed towards the back of the room, seeking any escape. I could see outlines of more boxes stacked against the walls, but one in particular caught my eye. It was different, a weathered trunk, covered in dust but adorned with strange symbols. As I approached it, the air shifted again, pulling me closer. I reached out, brushing my fingers over the symbols. Each one felt warm, almost alive. I glanced back toward the door, still sealed tight, before deciding to pry the trunk open. The latch creaked, and as I lifted the lid, a rush of cold air spilled out. Inside was a jumble of items, clothes, shoes, and a collection of small dolls, their glass eyes staring vacantly. But beneath the toys, something gleamed. I reached in, my hands trembling, and pulled out a small silver key. The moment I held it up, the laughter faded to a whisper. That's what you need," said the child's voice, clearer now, filled with sudden hope. "Need for what?" I breathed, looking around as if someone would answer. But the shadows only swayed, and the laughter was gone. I felt a surge of hope mixed with confusion. I pocketed the key, glancing back at the trunk. Then, a sudden crash from the upper floor rocked the building again, and I couldn't ignore it. Someone or something was up there. With no time to lose, I turned back towards the door, now consumed by desperation. The key felt heavy in my pocket, a promise of unlocking something. Just then, I spotted an old staircase in the corner, spiraling upward into darkness. My instincts warned me against it, but curiosity pushed me forward. I clutched the railing tightly and climbed up, each step creaking beneath my weight, as if the staircase itself was reluctant to carry me. As I reached the top, a chilling silence enveloped me. The hallway stretched on, dimly lit by the flickering light from my flashlight. I could hear faint whispers now, flowing down the corridor like a gentle breeze. The sound was mesmerizing, pulling me deeper. Then, without warning, a door swung open at the end of the hall, revealing a faint light spilling into the darkness. I stepped closer, heart pounding in my chest. That light felt like hope and dread. I took a breath and crossed the threshold. That's when I saw an old mirror hanging on the far wall, dusty but reflecting a shimmering image of a child. The child was smiling, but something felt terribly wrong. I couldn't move. The reflection stared back, eyes wide and unblinking, urging me to come closer. Then everything went dark. I gasped, the darkness swallowing me whole. It felt thick and suffocating, almost alive. I blinked rapidly, trying to adjust, but my flashlight flickered against the void. I was completely lost. Panic gripped me again, and I stumbled back, my mind racing. Suddenly, a soft light reappeared, dancing across the surface of the mirror. I squinted. The child's reflection was there again, but now it was clearer. The smile was wide, almost too wide, and the glass seemed to ripple like water. I knew I should be afraid, but something about the child's gaze pulled me in. "Come play," it whispered, the voice no longer from the outside but echoing inside my head. I shook my head, refusing to take a step closer. I didn't trust it. And yet, my heart thumped with an eerie intrigue. The laughter returned, this time sounding distant, like a faded memory. It circled around me, drawing closer, filling the hallway with unnatural glee. I squinted at the child's reflection. It wasn't just a trick of light. The small figure in the mirror was moving, shifting as if attempting to reach through to me. "Help me," it murmured, and I froze. The police sent shivers down my spine. I took a shaky step back, glancing at the other end of the hallway. The door I had entered through was gone, erased into the shadows. Where was the staircase? The sense of direction slipped away like grains of sand. I turned again to the mirror, trying to understand. "Why?" I whispered, feeling the words strangled in my throat. "Unlock it," the child urged, pointing toward the trunk below me, shadowed in the darkness. The silver key in my pocket felt cold against my skin, suddenly heavy with pressure. A need bubbled inside me. What was I supposed to unlock? My own fear? Or something worse? Before I could decide, A loud bang ricocheted down the hallway. The walls trembled, and I could feel the vibrations under my feet. Then, another sound, a high-pitched shriek, unlike anything I'd ever heard. It echoed and twisted, piercing through the thick atmosphere. I couldn't stay here. I needed to find a way out. I turned back toward where the door had been, desperation fueling me. As I made my way down the hallway, I noticed a small crack in the wall. It was a jagged opening. Instinctively, I knew I had to crawl through. I dropped to my knees and pushed myself forward, heart racing. As I squeezed through, I felt a grip around my ankle, icy and firm. I yanked my leg free but stumbled into an even darker space. I couldn't see a thing, but the laughter returned, now closer and more menacing. My breath quickened. The metallic taste of fear filled my mouth. I needed to find a light, a way to escape whatever was following me. I heard something shuffling behind me, and I pushed forward, praying for some kind of opening. Then, I saw a faint glimmer. The key pressed against my thigh, a reminder that I had something, anything, to unlock. I ran toward the light, hoping it wasn't just another trick. As I approached, the laughter morphed into a sinister chant. I could almost make out words, but I didn't want to listen. Rounding the corner, the glimmer became a portal of shimmering light. Another opportunity? Or my final choice? I took a breath and dashed toward it, the child's reflective eyes burning in my mind. Just as I reached the threshold, everything went black again. I blinked, disoriented. When the darkness receded, I found myself lying on a cold floor. My flashlight flickered weakly beside me. I sat up slowly, trying to gather my thoughts. I was no longer in the hallway. I looked around. The walls were lined with shelves, piled high with strange, dusty toys. It was a warehouse, but not any warehouse I'd seen before. The air was heavy with a musty smell, a mix of old plastic and something else, something dark. I stood up, wincing as I brushed myself off. "Hello?" My voice echoed in the silence. No answer came. I turned back toward the direction I'd come from. Merely a dark void descended again, swallowing the light behind me. But there, on one of the shelves, something sparkled. It was a doll. With caution, I approached it. The doll was unlike any ordinary toy. Its porcelain face was painted with a small, mischievous smile, but its eyes held a depth that sent a chill through me. I reached out, my fingers trembling. As they brushed against it, the doll's head turned slightly to face me. My heart raced. "Do you want to play?" A tiny voice chimed from nowhere and everywhere at once. Backing away, I quickly recalled the child in the mirror, its pleading look searing into my memory. "I don't want to play," I shouted, a surge of defiance taking hold. The laughter that followed felt mocking, echoing through the aisles of toys. Instinctively, I turned to leave. That's when the lights flickered back to life, harsh and blinding. I shielded my eyes, but they quickly adjusted to see more of the space. To my left, groups of toys sprang into movement. I froze, disbelief washing over me. A toy soldier marched in place, while a jack-in-the-box wobbled back and forth. My breath quickened again. This was no ordinary warehouse, it was alive. "Help me," echoed again, clearer this time. It was a woman's voice, full of desperation. It pierced the playful tension in the room, sending goosebumps down my arms. "Over here." I followed the sound, abandoning my fear momentarily. Maybe there was someone else trapped here, a chance for help. But as I kept walking, the laughter turned sinister. The more I progressed, the more the toys seemed to join in the chant. I found myself stepping into a small clearing. In the center stood a large, ominous chest, covered in strange symbols. There was a lock on it, a familiar shape. The key. My hand instinctively reached for it, feeling the metal bite into my palm. "Unlock it," the doll's voice echoed again. But now it sounded more urgent, more demanding. My heart raced. What would I find inside? Before I could decide, the ground shook violently, knocking me off balance. "No, don't," came the woman's voice, trembling with panic. I hesitated, the weight of the key heavy in my hand. The atmosphere in the warehouse shifted, darkening again as shadows crept closer. I knew I had to act quickly. I plunged the key into the lock. The sound of metal grating against metal echoed like thunder, and a warmth ignited inside me, a desperate hope amidst the chaos. I turned the key, feeling the lock give way, but then the world around me seemed to unravel. Suddenly, the shadows lunged forward, and I realized I was no longer alone. Something dark and menacing was coming for me, and I had to face it head on. The moment the lock clicked open, a powerful gust of wind rushes out of the chest, extinguishing the buzzing fluorescent lights and plunging the warehouse back into darkness. Panic surged in my chest, but before I could react, a beam of shimmering light erupted from the chest, illuminating the immediate area while leaving the corners of the warehouse shrouded in shadow. I felt a tugging sensation, as if that light beckoned me to step forward into the unknown. The ethereal glow revealed the very same porcelain doll from before, its eyes locked onto mine with a knowing intensity. "Help us!" it echoed, a chorus of whispers intertwining with its command. I gritted my teeth against the primal urge to run. I had come too far. There had to be a reason I was here, a thread tying me to all of this. I took a tentative step closer, heart pounding in time with the rhythm of my rising fear. The whispers swelled, morphing into various tones. Some were desperate, others accusatory. "You've come too late," one voice murmured, chilling me to the bone. I glanced back at the shadows, shifting and swirling along the walls, seeming to pulse with anticipation. Inch by inch, I drew closer to the light and its contents, determined to uncover whatever laid within, hoping it might hold answers. As I reached out, my fingers brushing against the edge of the chest, I felt the shadows snatch at the edges of my vision. "Find us," the voices implored, amplifying with urgency. I swallowed hard, recalling the flicker of that child's face in the mirror. Someone was trapped here. The urgency of their plea broke through my fear. "I'm trying," I shouted, my voice trembling. Then, without warning, the figure of the child burst into the light with a sudden flash. "You must choose," it cried out, and at that moment, I felt a pull at my heart, a connection deeper than mere coincidence. The light beckoned, but I hesitated. What if opening this chest unleashed the very darkness I sought to escape? But deep down, I felt it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all the lost souls, the trapped children, these fragments of torment buried under layers of laughter that echoed with sinister tones. Against the backdrop of swirling shadows, I steeled myself, grasped the doll's hand, and made my choice. With a fierce twist, I opened the chest completely, revealing not just the contents but a brilliant light that swallowed the darkness whole. The cacophony of whispers intensified, mingled with the laughter growing fainter, retreating reluctantly. And then, silence. That I stood there, breathless amidst the radiance, feeling the warmth seep into my bones. Shadows diminished, retreating like a nasty memory, and for the first time, the air felt lighter, almost purifying. But lurking questions began to gnaw at me. What had I truly released? Was it the spirits of those children? Was it darkness or light, just a trick of my mind? I staggered back as the light dimmed, fading like a receding tide. In that moment, a thought struck deep. The laughter might have fallen silent, but its echo would not leave my mind. I could still hear it whispering, hinting at deeper truths yet to explore. The warehouse felt heavy again, muted breaths echoing in spaces I couldn't quite grasp. Where had the children gone? Did I help or imprison them deeper? With one last glance around, the path ahead shifted as daylight seeped through a side door that had gone unnoticed. I rushed toward it, a desperate need to breathe air untouched by laughter or whispers. I knew I was leaving with more questions than answers, a lingering sense of being watched as I exited, an understanding that the darkness could be played upon, but never fully extinguished. That I moved into the light, my heart pounding not just from fear, but from the lingering shadows of those whispers, now muddled with uncertainty. As the door shut behind me, I couldn't shake the feeling that my escape was linked to something far greater than I could ever comprehend. I took one last look back at the warehouse, and as I walked away, the chill of that laughter echoed in my mind. I thought about the children, the lost souls, and the darkness festering just beneath the surface of everyday life. In that moment, I understood I would never forget, and maybe, just maybe, I was never meant to.